Hi class, so this video is to review creating wall types in Revit. So a lot of you have really similar wall types. You either have vinyl siding, wood siding, hardy board, or some sort of stone veneer. And then some of you have stucco. So first let's start with those of you who have vinyl siding, wood siding, hardy board, and some stone veneer. So this is an example of a house that I have in Revit. And I want to click on the wall type and just show you some things. So to start, what I would do is if you are the person who has vinyl siding, wood siding, or hardy board, you can start with the wall finish of just exterior brick on metal stud you may have. Go ahead and use that. I am going to just show you the materials that I have in this finish that I've created called wood shingle over wood siding on 2x4 wood studs so that you can see how wall types are set up. So if I hit edit type, you guys will want to duplicate and rename your wall type so that it matches whatever materials you are using. And then you're going to want to hit edit structure. I like to show the section view while I'm looking so I can see what I'm doing in my plan. Okay, so let's start. So the first layer I have is I have a finish layer called wood shake. And actually I have shakes up here on the top part of my house, and then underneath I have clapboard siding. So if I just look back at my drawing here, my shakes are up here and my clapboard siding is down here. So that's just like a wood siding. So that's my split wall. That's my compound wall. And I'm going to walk through how I did this in just a minute. I just want to show you my materials first. So when you have finishes that are on the outside of the building, those are on function finish 1 of 4. So 1 of 4 just means that it's on the exterior of the building. So those are my exteriors, wood shake, and then siding, clapboard. If you're using siding, wood siding, or hardy board, go ahead and use that same thickness I have of 5/8 inch. If you are using vinyl siding, I believe most of you found a 0.024 inches to be acceptable for vinyl siding. So go ahead and put that as the thickness. And remember, the thickness is how much it comes off of the wall. Then we're going to have an air infiltration barrier. So this is going to be a function of a membrane layer, air infiltration barrier. So this is just the plastic that wraps around the house. Let me show you an example. So this would be something like Tyvek. You guys have all seen this. This is just a plastic kind of material that wraps around the house. And the reason this is on here is that so the plywood that's underneath this, if I can show you an image, there's the plywood right here, it doesn't get wet. Okay, so it's creating a barrier so that the water does not go onto this wood. Because if you get water on this particle board, it is going to swell and then deteriorate and cause mold. So Tyvek is just simply this material, it's a house wrap. Alright, so that when you see membrane layer, air infiltration barrier, that's what it's referring to, the Tyvek. And the thickness for this is really going to be in millimeters. It's very, very thin, so we're just going to put it as a 0 thickness. Okay, so for those of you having, again, vinyl siding, wood siding, hardy board, this is going to be your layers, sort of, because if you have stone veneer on the bottom, we'll have to put that in here as well. Okay, but back to the membrane layer. So I showed you what that was, and then underneath that we're going to have the substrate, and our substrate is going to be our plywood sheathing. So just like you saw in that image that I showed you, the Tyvek, which is this layer right here, is going to wrap around that plywood sheathing, and it's going to be 3/4 of an inch. So what we're doing right now is I'm building from the exterior side to the interior side. So the materials, if you click on them, you can see that they highlight over here in your section. So this is the wood shake. Down here is my clapboard, then my membrane layer is just a thin line, and then this is my substrate right here, which is my plywood. So I'm working from the outside in. Then I have my core boundary layer. So the core boundary layer surrounds our structure. So it always is just around your structural layer. You have a core boundary, and then you have a structural layer, and then you have your core boundary. So in this case, our structure will be softwood lumber, and I believe in class we said it's not going to be 3.5 inches. We're going to use a 2x6, which is actually 5 1/2 inches. So make sure that you have 5.5 inches in there. And what this does is it allows us to put more insulation in our walls and it makes our house more energy efficient. So that's why we use that. Okay, and then around our structure, again, we're going to have that core boundary. And then we're going to have another membrane layer, which is going to be our vapor retarder. And again, this is almost like another piece of plastic of sorts. And it goes on over the insulation on the inside of your walls, and it's going to control some moisture and some other things in the building. Not literally if there's going to be water in here, but if condensation occurs, that's what we're looking for. Then we're going to have our finish layer, and this is our inside layer, and it's going to be gypsum wallboard, and it will be 1/2 inch thick. So this is an example of what your wall type will look like for the vinyl siding, wood siding, or hardy board. And then just remember that your layers here, how I have them split with wood shake and wood clapboard, you may have a different material that's for stone veneer. Okay, and actually your textbook shows you how to do this. It's on page 2-11, and it talks about compound walls, and it shows you how to split a wall so that you have one material on the bottom like I have and a material on the top, and you're using these split region buttons. So I suggest going back to page 2-11, exercise 2-3, and taking a look at that. This is really important that you master this concept, and if you need help with it, please make sure that you let me know, post a question in the Ask the Class forum, so I can provide some additional training on this aspect if you're really stuck. For those of you who are using stucco as your exterior building material, I may suggest that you start with the EIFS building material. So I got those error messages because I changed my stud size. Don't worry about that if you guys were watching that. Okay, so for those who are using maybe a stucco material, you may want to start with the EIFS wall material, and actually it's not on these wall types that I have here because these are residential wall types. Where it will be found is if you go to File, New, and you start with an architectural template. Okay, I'll show you. Wall, you'll see EIFS. Oh, maybe you won't see EIFS. Oh, here it is, exterior EIFS on metal stud. So you might want to start with this wall type. And what EIFS is if you look it up online, it's a system. It's an integrated composite material, but the outside of it kind of looks a little bit like stucco. So that's why I'm saying you may want to just start with this, with the EIFS. And then you would keep this air barrier, the air infiltration, the plywood, the core boundary would be the same, except for under the structural layer, it wouldn't be metal stud. You'd be using that softwood, like I just showed in the previous exercise, and it would be 5.5. But most of this other information would be the same. If you're someone who has a brick house, you might just want to start with the exterior brick on metal stud. And again, you want to always duplicate before you start changing structure. But you would want to change it so that this is not a metal stud layer, and it is a softwood lumber that's 5.5 inches. And again, since I said that you should have a compound wall, you should have some sort of maybe stone underneath here and then the brick. And that, again, you need to look back at your textbook for how to do that. Okay, and then the last thing to note is the interior walls. So if we go back to my residential plan here, you're going to see I have interior walls. We're probably going to use 2x4s for our interior walls. So we're going to make a new wall type, and we'll call it interior 4.5 inch partition. And that wall type will be made up of 1/2 inch of gypsum board for the finish. And finish 2 of 5 means that it's an interior finish, okay? Then the core boundary, which always wraps our structure, and we're going to have softwood lumber, and it'll be 3.5 inches, the core boundary, and then we'll have the gypsum board again. So this, we need to make a new wall type called interior 4.5 partition wall. So go ahead and make your wall types, and that will hopefully help you get started. Make sure that when you're measuring your building, you're measuring from the exterior face so that your building doesn't shrink on you if you have to change wall types. I also placed some examples of some drawings in Blackboard for you to look at of completed construction document sets. Please use the Ask the Class forum if you have any additional questions. Thank you.